personally, as well as three main categories. When on Instagram we did a poll, and it looks like three main categories that people wanted to hear about was the experience of Pati becoming an architectural entrepreneur, as well as how Pati got the O1 visa so quickly, and tips and ideas she has that are proven, and Pati's experience at HOK NYC, as well as Crab Studio in London with Sir Peter Cook, and as well as Herzog&DeMeuron. Sorry, I'm not the best with pronunciation, in Madrid. So to just kick it off, how about we start with who you are personally, just to kind of let people know what got you into architecture. We'll start there, and then we'll go into the questions focused on those three topics that I mentioned previously.
So great. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. Yeah, this I mean, I didn't expect to find the people was actually interested in knowing more about me and my path, I guess. But actually that's a misconception, because I think that everyone can contribute with something, and everyone can relate to somebody else at certain point in their career. So I think that this is great. We should all interview each other at one point.
I like that.
And the only thing is this is 5:02. I'm just worried that well, we can just start and people will see the replay. If it's just that normally it takes us like 5 or 10 minutes to make it work, but it's great. We are all connected. So you wanted to just explain who I am as an architect, or can you
so kind of like your like what started the path, I guess, since we're talking about the trajectory, and then I have
sure
go into more depth.
Sure. So just so you know, guys, I'm a regular architect, as pretty much all of you, meaning that I went through architecture school. I also got a master's degree in computer skills, computer software skills. And I also trained myself and went through all the stages that probably you're going through. And I think that I worked like over almost 12 years as pure architect. So I literally finished school, going back to that moment. I studied at the Polytechnique in Madrid. I did 4 years at the Polytechnique, and then I did my 5th year in Paris at the L'École d'Architecture Paris Belleville. It was an amazing experience. I think that we have already talked a little bit, for those who are not Europeans, about the what is called the Erasmus scholarship. So I got awarded an Erasmus to go to Paris. And that was not the first experience I had internationally, just because my mom, since I was a kid, she used to send me during the summers abroad to learn English, like to a family, things like that. And so I kind of have already that kind of tools embedded somehow to just pack my bag and start the new adventure. So I did, as I said, 5th year in Paris, and then when I moved back, I only had to face the thesis project. But at that moment, I had done pretty well, I have to say, during the career, just pretty well in the sense that I was ready to do the thesis master, but most of my friends were still like finishing grades. So I didn't, that was such a lucky moment for me, because instead of just, following the normal path here in Spain, that you finish your years of college and then you jump straight to the thesis project, just because my friends were still a little bit behind, that pushed me to take a different route. And instead of just finishing the thesis, I just start working. And what it was going to be like a couple of months or half of a year, it ended up to being almost 3 years. So I did the career in 5 years, where normally the average is like 10 or 8. I mean, in Spain it's super high. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it's pretty high for many reasons. Anyway, so I moved to London, and then I worked there I first worked in Madrid for like a year, and then I moved to London for another 2 years. We can talk about that if you're interested, with Peter Cook. And then is when I moved back, at some point I decided, okay, wait a minute. I mean, I'm just working, but I don't have my license yet. I mean, this
Right, that's
is
crucial.
Yeah, this is critical, just because, many people just miss the train of getting licensed just because they start working and you don't find the right moment to get back to school, right? So I just decided to quit and move back. I did my thesis, and then is when I became architect and kept working. But what I'm trying to say with this is that, I mean, I don't know if this is good or not, but I just think that the rules are there because are important, but sometimes the rules are there also to work around them.
Right, to be bent a little bit.
Yeah, somehow I mean, with strategically, I guess. And in my case, even though it was subconsciously, worked perfectly well, because normally the thesis is something that is very overwhelming. You're so insecure because you haven't really tested yourself yet in the professional field, right? So and through your career, everyone puts a lot of pressure in that moment, the thesis project, becoming an architect. And so you create in your mind some sort of expectations, and you start like pushing yourself so much that it's very, I mean, you struggle. I mean, normally you struggle.
It's stressful.
Really, really stressful. Yeah. So thank that I worked and I gained professional experience before getting into the thesis project. When I moved back to Madrid to do this, I actually did my master's at the same time that the thesis. Wow. And that was only because I was already secure. I had, learned resources, tools. I had built my confidence. And I was at a point where the critiques for me were constructive. Instead of, getting reactive to them, I was like, okay, I understand why my tutor is saying this, and I actually agree with this part of it, but the rest, that doesn't really deal with the type of architect I am right now or the type of architect I want to become. So I didn't follow that. And that was not an issue. It's just because, you were already confident and it worked really well. So I don't know if I give you kind of a little bit of idea of my background.
Perfect. Well, I'd like to actually go back to, so when you graduated from the Polytechnic University of Madrid, I remember you were telling me that you went into work with Herzog&DeMeuron pretty soon after. Is that correct?
Yes, but that is, so just to put you like in context. So I finished, oh my gosh, you guys are gonna think that I'm super old, but it's fine. It's fine. Okay,
that's what we're here for.
Yeah, so I did my 5th year in Paris in 2005. Yes, 2005. So I was in London until 2008. Then I moved, or 2009. Then I moved back to Madrid. I did my thesis, and yes, and in 2010, January 2010, is when I really graduated, even though I had finished in 2005. Oh, 2006, sorry. Yeah, because I worked in Madrid and then I moved to London. So that was the gap that I was mentioning before. So I remember that when I finished my, it was like a year and a half, the thesis plus the master's, So when I finished my both things, that was 2010, beginning of 2010, it was still the crisis here. I mean, everyone remembers the crisis that hit, economic crisis in 2008, but we're still suffering in many fields, but the architecture industry was dramatically affected by the economic crisis, and since then I think that we haven't recovered fully. But anyway, at that moment I remember that the atmosphere everywhere was really pessimistic, very gray. Everyone was like, well, Patty, now relax. It's gonna take you like a year to find a job. And I was thinking, I have never been someone very influential. I mean, as I said, I always absorb all what I can from others, but I kind of filter them through my own filter. I think that that's important.
You mean not influenced? So you, I
I'm
mean,
not
you're
influenced.
influential for sure, but so you don't let it influence you like the naysayers and the negative kind of perspectives
Yes.
at that
Well,
time.
the negative for sure. I
Right.
mean, if I come across with someone that is negative or pessimist, okay, bye,
Yeah.
ciao. I don't want that. But if it's someone that is, you know, putting things like in a more realistic or yeah,
Constructive.
yeah, then I always reflect and try to get the best out of that and turn it into an opportunity. Because I always think that through crisis, even though they are very tough, there's always something to get out of it.
Right.
I mean, I think that the biggest steps I've done, or I feel I've accomplished in my life, professionally and personally, have always come from a dramatic moment, like, oh my God, what I'm doing, like a panicking moment. And that is just because you push yourself. I mean, if you start in panic mode, it's difficult, but that's why it's super important to build the tools and also the mindset and the
Right.
strategy to turn that kind of what's the word, sterile,
What
in
is
Spanish,
sterile?
sterile. You don't know the word sterile in Spanish.
Sterile? Yeah, sterile.
Sterile, yeah. So the magic is when you are able somehow to convert or to turn around an sterile situation into a productive or an
Right.
opportunity kind of scenario.
Yeah, and going off of that, so when you were 25, that's when you went to London and you worked under Sir
Yes.
Peter Cook. So that was like right after university. So can you explain like what that experience was like, your personal relationship with him as a mentor, but also how valuable that was for
Oh
you
my
later
God.
on, right?
Yeah, that was like, I mean, that really blew up my mind. Like, so imagine I was 24. I remember my 25th birthday was in London. So yeah,
That's
24th.
unbelievable.
Yeah, so I was just back from Paris. I was thinking whether should I start my thesis project, but I didn't want to do it because my friends were still, in school. And then I started working for a professor, a construction professor here in Spain. He's pretty well known, Salvador Pérez Arroyo.
Mm.
I owe him, yeah, pretty much everything, because he was the first step in my career, right? So I had interned for him while I was studying fourth year before Paris. And then when I finished, he called me. I remember I was skiing, and then my mom called me like, Patti, Salvador is trying to reach out to you. And I was like, Salvador, you mean my former boss? Yeah, he called. I guess I didn't have cell phone at that moment, or I don't know why he
Yeah.
called my home. Anyway, he was trying to find me to offer me a position in London. And it was like, I had already paid the tuition for the thesis master, even though I was still, deciding what to
In
do.
limbo. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. And then he was like, so I have this opportunity. I think that you are the right person for it. Do you want to go to New York, sorry, to London to set up the office that I'm about to start with Peter Cook? At the time, he wasn't knighted. He got knighted while I was working for him.
Wow.
And I was like, what you mean? What does that mean? What does that entitle? Run the office? I mean, I was really young. I
Yeah.
didn't know. And but I say, yes. You tell me I'm in London. Yes. I want to do it. At that time, I didn't feel that confident with English. It was more French in my mind. Anyway, so I went there, and it was incredible because it was Peter, his partner Gavin, and myself, the three of us, and they have this beautiful office down Rosebery Avenue in Angel. For those who know London, it's actually a neighborhood full of architects. Zaha Hadid has, or used to have, at least, I don't know anymore, her studio there. Well, many architects. Many. And so it was incredible because Peter, obviously, he's a creative human. I mean, he's not a businessman, basically. So from helping to varnish and to paint all the crazy furniture that he designed, to setting up the server, to interview new people, to filing competitions. I mean, I did I was part of everything because, you know, the first months we were like a family. I mean, Peter is actually a very, very, very close person. He invited me over to his house so many times. I know his son, his wife, obviously, we traveled together. It was incredible experience. That from the personal side, but from the professional, it was even more incredible because he was inviting me over to every brainstorming kind of process and treating me like if I was at his level. And I was like, you know, asking me for my feedback, for my ideas. And so we were sketching together. Then I was converting all that into, you know, real drawings, cat. Rhino is when I learned Rhino. I learned it by myself there because no one knew any computer skills in the office at that moment. And then we start building the office with students from the Bartlett School and from the AA. And it was an incredible, I was with him like a year and a half, something like that. And it was amazing. I mean, he's such a mentor, such an inspiring person, very, very wise, as you can all imagine. It was great because I was even helping him to prepare lectures and I don't know, everything. And so as you can imagine, that made me learn a lot. I mean, I grew like, I don't know, like 3 years in 1 year and a half or something. Yeah. And yeah, it was kind of sad to come back home at that moment, but I had to finish my thesis. Otherwise I was going to be one of those architects, you know, without the right of signing, stamping, and all that. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But I
was going to say that I don't know if I actually. Sorry, I talk too much. Yeah.
No worries. So then, in terms of like the mentorship with him, what did you take away in terms of later on trying to find other mentors in your life for those that are early on in their career and they want to kind of have like a way to sift through to make sure they get the correct mentor, because not every person is going to be the correct mentor for. That's
true. And even if they are a right mentor, they might not fit with you or the other way around. Yeah, you're right. So one of the main learnings I got from Peter is that you always have to, well, at least that's what he did with me and it worked. So I guess I repeat it. So you first put all your, what's the word? Faith in someone. So you give that person responsibility from scratch. So you can actually see, you know, what is the scope, I guess. The person can, oops, sorry, hold on.
No worries.
I missed my headphone. You know, how far the person can go, how far the person wanna go, and you know, how they react under certain circumstances. So, because that is very important actually to assess whether you are overwhelming someone with, you know, tasks that maybe they are not capable to do. And also it can ruin, you know, the ambition of someone if you're just, you know, asking for more basic or less skilled task that what they can do, right? So, and that also gives the person, I guess, the feeling of being part of the boat, right? Like if from day one you are saying, okay, we have to do this, and I want you to focus on doing some research about this, setting up like a short strategy with key ideas and how we're going to actually implement it. That might be overwhelming, but that is going to already give you a sense of, you know, where the person is kind of swimming. At what level, and then, you know, just move with that. That is what Peter used to do. You know, he was like, okay, Pati, we have this competition in Milan. This is the brochure. You have to read it through. You have to extract the key info, and you're gonna present it to us, and you're gonna do this. I don't know, and then tailoring, you know, massaging, I guess, what the person can accomplish. That was I guess the main learning in terms of mentoring. Like, yeah, giving responsibility is always something good for the person.
So responsibility, a hands-on approach, someone that is willing to really give you a chance to shine. That's what you would say are the three main.
Yeah, and
sort of-
also and also helping the person, because not everyone is as vocal, right? And they need some sort of push, especially at your early careers.
Well,
So try to build the confidence of the person through, you know, accomplishments or failures, even in failures.
right,
I mean, that's actually the part where you can get more learnings, like when you know, fail, or you're not doing exactly what is expected. I don't know. That is also a good point for growing.
So since you've been able to, throughout your career, not only work in Spain, but also in London and New York, in terms of the cultural differences in the workspace, you mentioned that Sir Peter Cook was more on the artistic side and not as much on the business side. Did you see a difference, like when you went to New York with HOK, more of the business side, maybe?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know if I would say that the difference comes from the cities per se, or from the type of studios or firms, because they were completely different. That's true. So the way I landed in New York is that, just to give a little bit of context. So I finished my time in London. I moved back to Madrid. I did my thesis and my master's. Then the recession was there, but I didn't hear, as I was saying, all the noise around me. I was like, okay, Patty, what do you want to do? What do you want to work? Let's start with that. And then if you cannot find a job at that level, then you will, instead of just going, you know, at the bottom just because everyone was saying that, I didn't give a shit. And I put together my work, my portfolio. At that time already, people were submitting portfolios online, right? But I was like, I'm gonna go through every single office I'm really interested, and I'm gonna submit my portfolio in hand. And you know, probably they're gonna think, what are you doing? Who are you? But I mean, just because no one really used to do that, you know, that already gave me like an extra value, I guess, because I remember knocking the Norman Foster's office here in Madrid. At the time, Dominique Perrault had an office here. I also applied for a few big ones, Spanish ones, and Herzog&DeMeuron. That for me was like my dream, the dream job. I mean, they're still, yeah.
Top notch, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for myself, like in my top 3 architects. So anyway, I remember knocking the door and giving the portfolio to a guy that became my friend later on, and that he got it and he just smiled, thank you, bye. And I was like, okay, no one's gonna call me. But for some reason they did. I mean, because they had in hand, you know, my work, my portfolio. I tried to make it as strong as possible. That's why I always reinforce the idea that the portfolio is key, guys. It's super important. Even way more, I mean, yeah, nothing to do with the CV. No one is going to look at your CV if you don't first pass the cap with the portfolio. So it's your business card. Anyway, so I remember that the partner that was running the Herzog&DeMeuron office in Madrid called me, and he said that he wanted to interview me, and then I interviewed with him, and then he called me and he said, okay, well, I got an offer for you. And I was already working for a small studio here in Madrid, very mediocre, I mean, nothing special, just because I wanted to work. And I got also an interview at Dominique Perrault. I mean, you know, things happen just because I push them to happen. I don't know how to explain this concept because it seems super obvious, but for some reason people don't follow it. Like for me, the main learning I've got through my entrepreneurial kind of adventure, that we can go through that later, but just so you know, is to, I don't know, develop strategies to turn the impossible possible, and to become and go from invisible to invincible, you know. And like that sounds maybe flashy and like, okay, well, what do you mean? Well, I don't know. One of the things probably is don't rely on others, meaning You have to, I mean, I'm not saying don't just work on your box and do not work collaboratively at all. I mean, I'm very social and very collaboratively, but what I'm trying to say is that you have to have super clear your goal. You know, what's next, where you want to go. Okay, I want to go there. Okay, I'm here. What are the steps I have to take, or what are the points I have to accomplish in order to get closer to that goal, right? And always when one of those steps need somebody else action, that is where the strategy of turning an impossible thing into possible is. How you have to kind of wear the boots of many different people. Like, okay, what if this person doesn't do this? Then I'm gonna be fucked because this is not gonna happen. And what if they do this? And so you start building
Plan B,
your
plan C, plan D.
Yeah, and then you kind of anticipate that, and you do something in the event that happens. Seriously, that has saved me from so many things. Like, I wouldn't have got my O1 visa. I wouldn't have, I mean, many things, just because I was anticipating, and even sometimes playing in the line, like, of, okay, I don't know if this is good or not. Like, for another example, and that applies to our business, what we do now, what we do together, Pablo and I. Pablo is the director of partnerships, right?
Oh, sorry, I didn't
Architect
mention
US.
that.
Yeah. So we both try to always find more companies for you guys to offer you positions, right? And so what you could firstly think that the path that you have to follow in order to get that kind of agreement with the company is, you know, talk to the HR person, then get together with the team manager, then do. Forget about that. I mean, at least what I do, and I think that, well, and Pablo also does that, we just go straight to the head, you know, we just go straight to the principal and talk to that principal as if they were at my level, not being unrespectful, obviously, but like, they're human beings, first of all. Yeah. So you don't have to be scared, you know, at some point they were also young, they were at your, you know, at your level. And so that's what I mean, making things impossible to possible. If you are trying to get an appointment through the HR manager and the HR manager doesn't care or doesn't listen to you or whatever, you're not gonna get it, right? Even though you are following the supposedly the right path. You know, I'm emailing, I'm calling, I'm following up, but nothing happens. Then forget about that route, try another one, right? And so, yeah, I don't know if I'm talking too much.
Oh yeah, but especially with the larger firms where they have certain systems in place that sift through thousands of applications. The best thing to do is make a first impression before you even meet them in person. So would
and
you
set yourself as what is the word? Contributing with something different, right? Like, even like if you send an email, that email needs to sound different from the others. Sometimes being super, what's the word? Solemn, or, you know, very
low energy.
Yeah, they would think that you're just one more out of the others, you know. And so you have to show your personal flair somehow, and when it comes to networking and when it comes to speaking to people. But in general, what I was trying to kind of frame is that idea. Try to think where you want to get, and kind of draw literally in a piece of paper. I think, like, if it was a diagram, a vertical communications diagram, the different possible routes, and anticipate to those regardless of third parties.
Yeah, and another great tactic you can use is looking at other people that are further along in their career and seeing what their trajectory was, like we're doing right now with you, Pati, and understanding what decisions they had to make, what kind of barriers to entry there were, especially when people are coming from outside of the US into the US. So maybe we can start to go into your experience going over to the US, since a lot of
Sure.
people that are listening to us are trying to make that
Yeah.
move as well.
Yeah, sorry, because you actually asked me about the differences. So it was totally different because my main background until I moved to New York, it was pure design. I had worked for a professor, in, as I said, in Madrid, that was, you know, very strong in design. Then for Peter Cook, there was only design. You know, I mean, I don't remember seeing a construction document at Peter's office. You know, it was all about ideas and competition. I mean, yeah, it was awesome. And then at Herzog&DeMeuron, I work through construction documents. I mainly no, I only work for one project, which is the BBVA Bank headquarters here in Madrid. It's one of the biggest banks here in Spain, and it was incredible as well. It's very, very important when you start in an office that you play your cards fast and clever from the very beginning. Never go on somebody's steps or foot. Well, how do you say
Never
that?
step on someone else's
Never
feet.
stop. Yeah, yeah, I made it up. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, that's not what I'm saying whatsoever. What I'm trying to say is that you know, you kind of prove yourself as fast as you can, so people can tell, oh, this person is strong in this, you know. And look at that. She was actually very proactive, and she produced this, even though it was not part of the duties. I mean, I as I'm very passionate in general, but for architecture a lot, you know, I didn't mind working long hours when it was needed for a competition deadline or whatever, but as well for, you know, when there was something I wanted to contribute that was not part of my daily duties, you know, I just stayed to actually propose it. That's one way of actually going up, you know, fast, because I mean, they might not like what you propose, but they might like it. You know, you are expanding basically the horizons of what is requested at some point. That helped me a lot in all the offices where I've been, you know, being very proactive, hands-on, as you said, and yeah, producing work by myself that for one way or for one reason or another, I thought I could, you know, contribute to the project or to the design process or the stage where we were. And so when I got to New York, I got that through a scholarship as well. The Spanish Ministry of Education gave me, well, I got it was called Argo, and it was to work in a small office called James Carpenter Design. This guy is actually super famous in New York. Is very well known because he's specialized in glass, and well, he's an artist and an architect. Anyway, but that was very similar to, you know, the type of work that I had done in Europe, like very design. We were like 12 people. And for myself, it was like stepping back because it was a position lower at, you know, that my actual level. But I thought, I don't care. It's not the time for making money. It's not the time for, you know, gaining prestige through a title. That will come. You know, I knew really, really well what was, again, my goal and how to get there. And actually that had been the case as well with my professor in Madrid. I first started working completely for free. I had to drive like 2 hours per day. Not saying, guys, that I support free internships, but that was my choice at that time, you know, because I really want to work for this guy. And it was the crisis. He didn't have the resources. He could only pay for the petrol for my car. And I said, okay, I just want to learn. And I think it was a clever move at that moment, because that, you know, took me to the London opportunity years after when he thought of me. Anyway, and the same with the opportunity in New York. It was only for 10 months, but from day one, I was already drawing my strategy to, okay, I want to stay here longer than 10 months. What am I supposed to do? I have the academia route. I don't have the money, but okay, let's see what happens. You know, apply for American universities, or I can start trying to find, you know, to build my network in New York and see if I get a job. And
you did both.
Yeah, I did both. As I said, always multiple plans and anticipate. I didn't want, basically, I hate that things come to me just by chance. I don't know if that makes sense. Meaning that, I mean, there are things that come your way just because naturally they come your way. But there are other things that you can kind of push to happen somehow. So I didn't want that at some point I was gonna see myself, oh, great, the scholarship time is gone. I don't have a visa. I don't have another offer. I guess I have to pack my bags and leave New York. No. So I kind of start working. I think like 3 months after, 2 months after I arrived to New York, I was already working on, because I knew that the time was going to go fast and it was going to be difficult. You know, it was 2011. So they had just started, I think, getting out of the crisis in New York. Actually, there were still many layoffs and things like that. So anyway, so as you said, I played both. I started applying. I applied to like 10 different universities. I spent like $1,000 or something, because every application process in the US is like 1,000, right? Or 1,000 something.
Well, it depends, but yeah, around there.
Oh, well, yeah, sorry. I just remember something like that. I applied for Columbia, Princeton, Harvard, UCLA, Berkeley, I mean, IIT, everywhere, Sire. I got accepted to, I don't know, 60% of them. And some of them offer me a scholarship, but no full ride. I think that there's no full ride for internationals, or at least they didn't offer it to me. I don't know. Anyway, but at that moment, the point what I want to get is that there was a moment where I was, okay, I could choose between accepting the Columbia University, acceptance to the masters, or SCIARC or UCLA, the ones that accept me. I can also, try to extend my visa because I got the offer at HOK. Or I can decide now if I want to go back home and go to Ibiza this summer, So it was me deciding, not the situation and the system, immigration system or whatever. No, it was me deciding because I had built all the options. So
the more options, the better, because then you can leverage those options against your other options.
Of course, you are the owner of your life and you control it. I mean, that gives you, I don't know, you feel so empowered. Yeah, empowered, and you just decide where you want to go, right?
And so you feel like that feeling of wanting to have more options and you're expanding your horizons, as you said before. Do you think that tied into your interest to become an entrepreneur, or you were already from a young age an entrepreneur? When did you have that?
No, I was. Yeah, that's super funny. I have no idea how I became. Well, I kind of have a sense, but I mean, it was not planned. It was not part of my drawing at all.
Interesting. That's very
interesting. No. So it's true that my mom is very entrepreneurial, but I mean, okay, I don't know if that is part of my genes but yeah, no, I was the typical architect by the book. So all my trips were around architecture. So I was not going to a regular beach. If I was going to the beach, it was because there was the Salt Lake City, there, and I could visit the Louis Kahn building, or, if I was traveling to, I don't know, everything was around architecture, like architects does. We are very, very passionate. And so I thought I was going to open up at some point my own studio. That was always the goal. Like, yeah, pretty much every architect wants at some point to have my own projects and so on. But the thing is that I was in New York. I was there for almost 5 years. At the time when I moved there, when I got the scholarship, I had just started with who is now my husband and the dad of my very soon two kids. I'm actually on my due date. Today is my due date. So maybe at some point I have to. Yes. Yeah, it's due date. So, but I feel good. So anyway, so at that time, at some point, we were doing long distance for so long. and he moved to New York just because of me. He doesn't, I don't know what he's been doing in his life, but he doesn't really speak English. So he was for a year just working as a busser and learning English in academy. So not the best life ever, but it was the best year for both because we were living together in New York. So it was amazing. But anyway, so at some point he decided to move back to open up a business here in Madrid. And I was like, okay, great. Pati, you have to think through this very seriously because, you know, I knew that I had so many opportunities professionally in New York. You know, I was growing up quite good at HOK, you know, I had many opportunities and I had mentors that were, you know, willing to give me those opportunities. But at the same time, I had like my personal project or life project was becoming more important. And I was like, okay, I don't want to end up like in a condo surrounded by cats and maybe somehow one day becoming principal or whatever. That's not what I want. I want, you know, have a professional career, but I also want to have a, you know, family, personal life. So I started thinking, you know, how lucky I had been always, thanks to all those opportunities to move abroad when things were difficult or just, you know, for the sake of learning, that I thought, you know, I was kind of at that moment like very romantic, thinking, oh my God, New York has been amazing, but at the same time I want to leave. What am I supposed to do? I've been so lucky. And I started thinking it will be amazing if I could somehow help others that maybe haven't got the same opportunities that I did, you know, to work in London or in Switzerland for, you know, that, I don't know, somehow I thought of what if we build, you know, somehow a program that bridges architects from all over the world with US based companies, because there's so much opportunities here. The profession here, well, I cannot speak for every single country, obviously, but I know how it works in Europe. And, you know, the salaries are really higher. Opportunities come your way if you are actually, you know, good. Everyone is very into kind of a pyramid structure more than horizontal. That is what happens more in Europe. I don't know, many interesting opportunities that I thought, you know, this cannot be ruined or limited just because of the bloody immigration. I mean,
right.
You know, because I was super determined. I wanted to come to New York, and I find a way. There was not an Architect US program at that time, you know, helping you to find a job and dealing with your visa. It was just like, I think that I submit like seriously, and I'm not exaggerating, like 300 CVs from Spain just to try to get a job in New York, and barely no one responded to me. It was almost impossible. It's just because I got the scholarship. That's how I made it, right? So anyway, so I thought there must be a way. And then I also thought that, and that could be actually the passport for me to go back home and start having paella every Sunday, and, you know, my boyfriend close to me, and who knows, maybe, you know, I can then start doing some refurbishments on the side and do some architecture. I don't know. I was just trying to build that plan, that strategy again. And so I started in a very, very romantic way, just helping, because I had already done that throughout the years that I have been in New York. Like people asking me, hey, Pati, I have my cousin who wants to do an internship, or they want to get licensed, or they want to get the LEED certificate, or I don't know, any questions related to architecture practice. And so I thought, okay, let's make this professional. And so, I don't know, I just started with an event at the Center for Architecture in New York back in 2015, just to, because when I saw the idea more clearly in my mind, like, yeah, this could actually be a big thing, you know, like a program that, you know, helps build a community and brings the global architectural community closer, and regardless the immigration barriers and all that. So I thought, okay, Patty, yeah, that could be in your mind, but maybe there's no need, or there's no demand, you know, there's no niche for this. So I decided to do this event at the Center for Architecture at the AIA in New York. And I invited over 5 different principals. My former boss from HOK, the design principal at FX Fall, well, several ones, to discuss or talk about the benefits of, not immigration, the benefits of international architecture practice can bring to the table, right? When it comes to design and approach. And it was like such a success. I did it along with an exhibition of architects from Spain that had kind of made their way through the recession. And so many people came. It was such a success. I don't know if it was the Spanish ham that I bought. Anyway, but and so I realized, okay, there must be a demand, there's an interest in international talent. So I decided to quit at HOK, and it was very difficult because they were offering me, options to stay or to move to HOK London, and I was like, no, I want to go back home and try this. And I just moved back with some savings, and that's it. And I started, and that was the beginning of a very steep learning curve. I mean, from the business perspective, because I literally leave my Revit and AutoCAD and Rhino, and I,
with Active Campaign and no.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and arrive into a world that I had no clue about it, like business, strategies.
Interesting. So your experience going into business, you were more, it was like you were almost like a baby going into business. But the big break for you, would you say, was when you got accepted into the Telefonica Open Future Startup Hub, I guess is what it's called, or Startup Accelerator?
It's an accelerator, or they have incubator and accelerator for startups. But because I landed in 2015, summer 2015. So I was 1 year working. Well, guys, I'm saying this, but no one is listening, right? So I started Architect US from my home. It was just me. Dealing with these big offices in New York. I started with offices in New York for obvious reasons because of my network. But I mean, very soon we just start working with different offices in LA, San Francisco. Now we work across the entire country. But I mean, dealing with I knew I had learned a lot about Americans while I was there, obviously, but still, they're very demanding. I mean, I'm not saying them, like everyone, right? But I mean, to sell something to an American is not the same that to sell it to, I don't know, maybe a French, or because they're they're really, really, really savvy, and they're the kings of marketing, so they really have to think that they are dealing with someone who is at the same level that them. And we're talking about a lady, I don't want to call myself a girl anymore, but I mean, a lady working from home, trying, but they had to think that this was a huge structure. Even today, we are not a huge structure. I mean, we have a team, obviously, but I mean, that was very challenging to deal with all the different areas to make it happen. But I remember the first participant, I don't know if she will be watching us. It was not even from Spain. Her name is Estefania Escofianza. She's from Argentina, and she was the first participant. I mean, I remember crying because it was like, oh my God, this is happening. I mean, this is real. I have found a job to a girl that's moving to New York to live her dream for 1.5 years. Who knows where it's going to take her? Maybe she decides to stay as I did for longer. Maybe she, ends up getting a green card or building her professional and personal life there. It was very impactful,
very
and
rewarding.
That is very rewarding. And architects, that's another feature I think that we have all in common, that we really want to be impactful, you know, in some way or another, with your design, with your building, with the social housing that you promote. I don't know. And for me, that was the impact that I was kind
And the
of
community as well. It sounds like the architecture community, like you said, it's global, but also very relatively tight knit when you compare it to other industries, wouldn't you say?
Totally, totally, totally. And that was one of my main goals at the beginning. It was not only, okay, business stamps, which we don't really care about that. That's one of the steps in the process. But I think that, you know, we are building a real community. I mean, right now we have more than 8,000 architects enrolled or registered in our community. Not all of them obviously are working in the US, but I mean, people that are sharing their ideas, communicating, you know, their projects, you know, their concerns, and we're actually working towards a few things that I will inform you all very soon when Chloe is here already and I'm back full on track. But I mean, yeah, needing that community is definitely one of the missions that I always envision. And I have to say I'm very proud of what we've accomplished all together.
Definitely, definitely. And we have 8 minutes left, but I
Yeah.
just wanted, before we end, obviously we'll have some questions at the end, but just kind of tell us more about your experience with the O1 visa, because we haven't really touched that as much, and I just want to make sure that we touch all
Sure. Well, the O1 visa was one of those examples that somehow I referred before. Like, I remember that, you know, at some point I was working for HOK. They were super happy with me. They offered me the H1B right when I started. Yes, because my J1 visa was for 10 months.
Right.
It was a weird length. My scholarship was 10 months. So we first extended to 18, to the 18 months. But from the very beginning, they wanted me to, you know, to start working on the H1B. But the cap got reached that year. No, it was already, yeah, because it started like in June or something like that. So the H1B was not an option at that year, because they always open the polls. Now they move it to March, but it was always April 1st. Anyway, so H1B was not an option. So I was with the J1 and we start working with a lawyer, trying to find options for a second J1 that, as you may know, guys, is not an option unless you return home, you know, you gain professional experience for 2 years, or you go back to school and, you know, gain more academic experience, and then you become eligible again for a J1 intern. Anyway, so that was not an option either, because I didn't want to leave. So they were trying to relocate me to HOK Dubai, I remember, and HOK Hong Kong. Those were the two options, because I didn't want to go to London again, just because I want to experience, you know, some other cities in the world. But at the same time, you know, I was always with my, what's the word,
antennas. Yeah.
Antennas open to find ways, you know, as I said, to anticipate potential scenarios. And so someone told me about the O1 visa, but listen, I mean, hearing O1 visa was always attached to, but forget about it. It's impossible. It's impossible. Right. And I was like, I hate when someone tells me that. It almost pushes me. I mean, I'm not, yeah, it's not that I have a huge ego, but it's like challenging, right? Like, but why are you saying that? Explain first what is required, and then, you know, if it's impossible, it's impossible, but let's try it. Anyway, so I mentioned this to HOK. No one at that time had got an O1 visa at HOK, and they didn't know about that type of visa. And so I remember the meeting with the lawyer saying, you have 10% chances to get it. Forget about it. Yeah, 10%. I mean, I was like, you know, almost crying. Like, but what do you mean 10%? But what do they request? It's like, well, this is meant to be for aliens with extraordinary ability. And I was like, well, I was pretty good at school. You know, just thinking.
And I'm an alien.
No, but just thinking like, but what exactly does that mean? It's true that when you read the criteria, it's like almost like if you were going to be the next Zaha Hadid, which obviously I'm not. You know, very, very difficult. But I don't know. I just found that there's always, especially with the law in the US, it's not like Romanic law that is yes or no. You know, in the US, it's more about building the case and how you right, how you argument and you know, present it. So I started myself because the lawyer was like, forget about it all the time. So reading every single criteria, trying to think how I could, you know, turn it around. And that's what I did. So I remember, like, one of the criteria, for instance, it was like, you know, awards. So it was like, okay, I got a few scholarships, you know, that could be, but it was not a Pritzker. You know, they were giving examples like a Pritzker in architecture, like a Nobel in literature, like an Oscar. I was like, okay, this is going to be difficult. But anyway, so I started building my application that was like this thick, seriously. I worked like for 3 months nonstop on it, trying to build a case around what I had accomplished. Like, if I got that Erasmus scholarship, for instance, I think that could be a good example. You know, my university, which is the largest in Spain, every year at the time, I don't know the numbers now, we were like around 400 or 450 architects, right? So I thought, okay, so if this scholarship to the specific university I was going to, that I applied for, is given only to 2 architects, that is already putting me in quite good position, right? 2 out of 400 or 2 out of 450, I don't remember. That's pretty good. So there was no narrative about that, but I built it. You know, I went to speak to the International Career Center or whatever in my university, asked them for charts about numbers, and I put it together in a way that's an immigration officer that has nothing to do with architecture, no sensibility, you know, is different. I mean, his expertise is in a different field, could understand, you know, just by logic that, you know, this girl seems to be pretty good because she got a scholarship, you know, out of all this number of people, And I did that with everything. I remember that a Spanish TV show recorded me in New York, and they invited me to 2 different programs. One, you know, I couldn't really use it for this purpose because it was about how you could experience Manhattan in a cheap way as opposed to an expensive way. So I was talking about the best or the cheapest burger in Manhattan, or how you
slice
could
pizza.
Yeah, you know, it was not. But then they invited me over to talk about the ground zero, you know, from the architecture's perspective. It was not a serious thing, but it was fine. It was in one of the main TV show, I mean, and main channels here in Spain, talking about something from the architect's perspective. So that was given already, I don't know, some credit, right?
You're an expert in that field.
Kind of. So, you know, I built all information around that. Again, immigration officer was not going to know Channel 4 in Spain. So I provided statistics, you know, who are the main channels in Spain, I don't know, that kind of thing. And that approach is what I think it gave me the whole one. And I had to say to the lawyer,
you can hire me later.
No, but I mean, this is, again, you have to make the impossible possible. Right. End of story. You have to find a way. And if at the end of all your trials and you know, and things that you explore, it doesn't work out, then you won't feel like you failed because you did all what you could. You know, yeah, and it's the most rewarding and peaceful thing ever, I think.
Wow. Well, very well said, and that's amazing. That I didn't even know that you created your own case for the O1 visa.
I didn't lie. I just put in a grade. Look.
Yeah. Just a little bit of extra sauce. But yeah. So yeah, we're close on time. So if anyone in the audience has any questions, please write them in the comment section. And if not, obviously you guys can reach out to us via
Yeah,
email.
it will be amazing if you guys share with us any thoughts or comments or even ideas for future interviews, you know.
Definitely.
And if there's anything specific that you would like me to, I don't know, to go on in another time, it will be great. I'll be always open to it.
Let's see. I'm not seeing anyone saying anything. Well,
This is the best way of wrapping up for me. Seriously, I think
yeah.
that Chloe is full of energy now. You know,
She feels a passion in your